Welcome back to My Dad Watches The Bachelor. I'm Meredith and I'm here with my co-host, my dad.
Hey, Meredith, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. It was nice to finally have a 2-hour episode of a Bachelor programming after having multiple 3-hour episodes for Bachelor in Paradise. So two, it just flew by.
Okay, well, I wasn't watching Bachelor in Paradise, and I had to get through my Braves playoff game, so it was a long night for me, okay?
Okay, so we're on two ends of the spectrum here.
Okay, I'm on the I need the Braves to win a playoff game spectrum, and you're on the Bachelor spectrum.
Yeah, and I mean, that seems right. It seems where we should be.
Well, I'm. It's good to get started here, and we got to spend some time with Michelle and her parents. And aren't her parents very nice? And doesn't she hold her parents in high regard?
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't it be nice? She obviously really loves her parents, and her parents have been married for over 30 years, as have yours, and quite the role models, don't you think?
Yeah, you want to toot your own horn a little bit more this morning?
I'm getting to that. Don't worry. You tell me when we can start.
Okay, is that one of your highs for the day?
Actually, no, it's not. It was just an observation. But
Oh,
my,
okay.
my, my first highlight is me for nailing the first impression rose with Nate. I got that one right, which I must say was pure luck. But I'll take whatever win I can get.
I put that as a high as well because for the first time ever, I think one of us got the first impression rose correct, and that's a big deal. And I should have known that Michelle was gonna go for the guy that was 6'8". That was ignorant on my part.
She's a basketball player. She's a relatively tall young lady. So and Nate's little bio was friendly, but it just made me think that this is all luck. I'm throwing darts, and mine just happened to hit. So I'm happy that it did, but because you're always happy to hold it over me when you end up with more of the finalists than I do.
Well, I already have more of the finalists than you
I
do.
know, I know. Let's keep moving then.
Okay, well, speaking of like our picks, one of my highs was that to start off the intro packages, my top 4 picks had the first 3 intro packages, which I was like, whoa, these keep coming. I feel like that's pretty impressive. As the episode went on, wasn't feeling that great about a majority of my picks, but it felt good to have 3 of them right off the bat get intro packages.
And when you say intro packages, you're not talking coming out of the limousine. You're saying that they spent some time showing their backstories, which made you feel like if they're showing the backstories, those guys are probably going to be around for a while.
Yeah, we got a Chris S., a Clayton, and a Joe intro package.
And you and I both picked Clayton and Joe.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So we're simpatico there.
Yeah. So that was exciting to start off the night.
Well, as anyone who watches this crazy show knows, the first show is really spent introducing the eligible bachelors and showing their entrances out of the limousines. And again, this is not how you really want to meet somebody, but they're trying to make an impression. And I guess the ones that I sort of liked, I guess in my mind, I'm thinking, hey, there are 30 handsome guys coming out here. You have to find a way to make yourself stand out. So if I have any highs from last night's show, the 2 that stuck out to me were Chris, who came in with the shorts and the backpack like he's going back to school. I thought that was sort of cute. He's trying to distinguish himself. And I hate to say it, it's corny, maybe it's dad joke like, but I like Rick coming in as the main entree. And, she took the cover off the main plate and there's his head. So wasn't that cute? It was memorable.
I thought that you were going to hate Rick the table boy just because of how long he stayed in the table throughout the night. Because last season with Joe or James being in the box, you really hated it. You were like, when's this guy coming out of the box? And it was a similar vibe, but you seem to like Rick more.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I thought that maybe he was a little bit more clever where we could actually see his face and his head as opposed to someone just staying in the box the whole time. So I don't know. I must have caught me on the right night, or maybe I was just so exhausted after my Braves gave up 4 runs in the 8th to blow the game that I was more open to
All
such
right,
things.
this isn't the sports podcast. I know sometimes
Okay,
we talk about a little, but my baseball knowledge is not that high, so we're gonna stick to football here.
okay.
Okay, so I enjoyed both of those. I think that Chris's entrance stood out to me the most as well, and I also liked Clayton's having the yardstick that to get a little spanking from the teacher, and I like that Tasha and Caitlin called it a teacher stick. It's like they didn't know what it was called.
Teacher stick. Yeah, I thought that was cute as well, and I did find the teacher stick comment amusing. Hit me
And,
with the teacher stick.
and I liked that it seems compared to Katie's season, we have a much higher production value going on. It seems like even the promos we were getting for Michelle's season, it just seems bigger. It seems better. They seem more excited about Michelle, and that makes me more excited about this season.
Okay, I didn't notice that much, but I'll assume that was okay. Although I didn't write this down, but just one observation: when they did when they did their rose ceremony, it looked like they were doing it in the lobby of a Hilton or something. It really looked, I don't know, just sort of. Couldn't they find a better place to do it? It feels like someone's going to come down the stairs or an elevator here and we'll sort of walk out and wave at them. I didn't really know what was going on there.
Yeah, it wasn't quite as intimate as the rose ceremonies usually are. It's usually in like a dimly lit room and kind of closed in. I imagine they're in the hotel that they have rented out, so no one's going to pop in and wave to them. But basically, the whole night seemed like it was in that lobby. And I just felt so bad for Michelle how many times she had to walk up and down that huge staircase. Like, I'm surprised that she never fell. I would have fallen. She's wearing some high heels, going up and down these stairs all night, having all these guys watch her go up and down the stairs each night. Could have gone badly.
Well, when we see the blooper reel, perhaps it did go badly at some point in time, or this is only the first show. Yeah, she's got lots of chances to fall downstairs.
Yeah, that's true. I speaking of the rose ceremony, I did enjoy that, we comment on how night 1 of the show goes into the morning of the next day. And I felt like with editing, they really embraced that this time because we cut to commercial after the final or before the final rose is given out. Is Michelle going to give it to Joe? We don't know. And then when we cut back, they show the outside of the hotel, broad daylight. They aren't even trying to hide it anymore.
It looks like it's noon or something. I mean, it was like
it was not even early morning. It was middle of the day. These guys are still in their tuxes. We're pretending it's still night. They're still talking like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to make it to tomorrow. You've made it to tomorrow, buddy.
Yeah, I was taken aback by that as well, and that just the thought of this day, or I don't know what time they're starting this. Obviously, they're starting it at night, but this thing must drag on for so long. And she still says she doesn't get to talk to all the guys. What an awful night.
I'm just impressed that these guys can keep up for so long, because if I had to stay up all night dressed up in formal wear, I think I'd be delusional by the end of the night by lack of sleep and like you're on this adrenaline for being on the show the first time. I know I wouldn't be my best self. So I'm impressed with these guys.
Well, and you have to be impressed with Michelle. She's the one in the heels, being the hostess the whole time. So
that's true.
So kudos to her.
And we did not have any drunken idiots last night.
If they were quiet drunks. They were not idiot drunks.
I feel like usually we get our token drunk, and that just didn't happen last night.
And I don't think that we know who our villain is yet.
Well, your villain is gone. So Garrett, I think he was like the tech guy, guru, whatever. But my guy, what's his name? Peter, the pizza guy in the promo, he looked like he was going to be a good villain. He was throwing people's jackets in the pool.
Was that Peter? Well,
Yes.
then you might be onto something there. I mean, he looked like he's pretty darn cocky, right? That's for sure. So I guess he does have villain potential, but I'm not ready to elevate him to villain status quite yet.
I was feeling good about him as my villain pick simply because he walked in wearing a sparkly suit jacket.
Okay, I'll take that out of my rotation then.
Do you have any other highs?
No.
Okay, lows. Number one for me, the tuxedo Speedo from the Yoga Guru. Ew.
No pants. Yeah, he was on my low list as well. I'm not sure what his thought process was. And do we think he put pants on later during the show? Because I don't remember that look popping up again.
I don't remember it popping up either. I only remember seeing him again when he got his rose and we didn't see the lower halves. But I hope for the sake of everyone, he did put pants on.
Yeah, he was on my low list as well. And there's some of the guys look like they walked off the set of Revenge of the Nerds to me. And people of a certain age will remember that movie. Jack Russell, the former Army officer, thanks for your service, but he just seemed very awkward and nerdy to me.
That was the Philly boy.
Alec and Pardeep seem to be also awkward. I don't know if Alec. I know Pardeep is still there. I don't know about Alec.
Alec is still there.
Jack Russell?
No.
Okay. Well, so I to me they just didn't seem to have the same style points as some of the other fellows. But not that that's always bad. But for a stupid show like this, unfortunately, style often matters more than substance.
Yeah, and it did seem like with this cast of men, the show is being more inclusive. It's not the same basic white boy that we're getting anymore, but that is like the bread and butter of this show in the past, and so it does seem like some of these new guys coming in seem a little overwhelmed.
Well, I also I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about Ryan and his ice cream truck. And my first observation was him is, hey, buddy, button your shirt. His shirt was pretty much all the way unbuttoned. He's showing off his chest. And I was like, come on, that's not how you make a good impression. Come on, Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan had a lot working against him last night.
He had done his homework.
He had done his homework. Before we get into Ryan, I put him in a wrong reason. I had a low of Rodney. He dressed as an apple to be the apple of Michelle's eye. And he wore a red apple costume. And Michelle asked him what type of apple he was. And he said Granny Smith. And I immediately wrote down wrong. This is not right, Rodney. And I'm really glad Michelle ended up calling him out on that. And Rodney just seemed to have no idea that Granny Smith apples are green and that there are different types of apples.
Yeah, you would think that if you're going to dress up as an apple, you might have thought through that a little bit. I think that he was trying to be the apple that was given to the teacher, so sort of.
Yeah, of course. But, he's just so wrong.
So Rodney does not know his apples, yet Rodney lives to date another day, so he's still going to be around for a little bit.
Maybe he'll get the apple orchard date that we saw in the promo, just so that Michelle can teach him another lesson.
I'm sure that he would embrace having that date with Michelle and being taught about apples. So I was not a big fan of Romeo coming in speaking French, and he just seemed a little swarmy. I don't know, something about him I found off-putting.
Yeah, I cringed throughout his French, and then him talking about how, you can be the Juliet to my Romeo. There were a lot of entrances that I felt cringy on.
And they didn't even show, it seemed like they didn't show them all either.
So they
I'm
could have
sure.
been. We could have been worse. That could have been a
Yeah.
better one.
It could have been worse. So I mean, those were sort of the major lows that I noted.
Okay. Should we get into the wrong reason since that kind of builds off of it?
You want to do the wrong reason? Yeah, sure. Let's hear your wrong reason.
I want to talk about Ryan.
Okay, let's talk about Ryan. Why don't you tell people the Ryan story?
So, for some reason, for the first time ever, we have our co-hosts, going to meet these men before night one, going to like check them out for Michelle, make sure they're Michelle material. And this has never happened before. Two, why once Caitlin and Tayshia go into these men's rooms, do they start digging through their stuff? Obviously, they know that they're going to find something. So what ends up happening is they find that Ryan has a folder labeled Bachelorette, which he has spelled incorrectly. I don't know if you caught that, but he did not spell Bachelorette correctly. And he has basically done his homework and has notes on how to get screen time on the show and people he should emulate that were successful on their seasons, how not to be a villain. And this is just like so stereotypically bad of someone to do. Like, this is the exact one thing you should never do. So my questions are, why would he bring that with him? And second, like, how would the producers know that he had this in order for Tayshia and Caitlin for the first time ever to go meet the guys early and go through their stuff? Like, did he tell the producers that he brought notes to help him along the way? I'm very confused about this because they had to have known that he had these notes.
Well, I don't know if I totally agree with that part of it. In that I guess to me the question is, did these our hostesses, Tayshia and Caitlin, did they do this to all of the guys and they just showed footage of some of the more interesting ones? Did they?
The other ones weren't that interesting.
Well, they only showed one other, which they said, oh, he's organized, blah blah blah, he's got it together, and then they showed Ryan, who had obviously smuggled in some papers to hopefully help him and guide him through this process, which wasn't good. You should have crib notes, and when he was confronted about it by Michelle, and Michelle was reading through them, didn't some of the notes, which he claimed was from a friend's wife, say, you can be mean, don't be mean, and it made him sound like you're kind of a jerk. Don't be a jerk. That would be bad.
Yes, that was part of the notes. So I did a little research, and back pre-COVID, The Bachelor was doing this thing called Bachelor Live on Stage, and it was this tour where former leads Ben Higgins and Becca Kufrin would go around to different cities and basically have like a mini bachelorette season on stage, and they'd pick like a lead. And Ryan was one of the leads at this show. And he is sitting there telling Michelle, like, I just really don't know anything about this show. Like, I've watched maybe 2 hours. These notes are just to help me understand what's going on. Like, blatant liar right there.
Well, so I wrote down, for wrong reason, number one, having your notebook there, your playbook, not a good thing. But what rubbed me even as a more wrong reason is we've got these people going through these guys' stuff, like the Gestapo here, and they're sending the guys out of the room, going through their suitcases, doing this. So let me ask you, as someone who is politically sensitive and awoke, if the shoe is on the other foot, and who is replacing Chris Harrison for next year?
Jesse Palmer.
If Jesse Palmer goes into the women's room and says, oh, you're going to leave, well, I go through your suitcase, and starts pulling out lingerie and God knows what sort of stuff you have in your toiletry bag, which I don't want to know about, and I've been married for 30 years. How are we feeling about that?
Yeah, that it probably wouldn't look good if the roles were reversed. But Tasha and Caitlyn make it very playful, and like the guys play along with it, so it doesn't seem like sketchy in that way when they do it. But there are things that like sometimes girls can do that guys can't do, even in the age of 2021, and it seems okay if a girl does it, not so much if a guy does it. We don't have the full equality that we want yet. But my main issue here is, why does it take so long for Tasha and Caitlyn to tell her about it? It's not cool. They find this, they should probably immediately go to Michelle. I think I would have liked it more if this guy didn't even get a limo entrance because Michelle already sent him packing.
Well, as you know, sometimes they find ways to amp up the drama on this show. So perhaps we're being manipulated.
Never.
So anyway, my wrong reason is more just with we're going to bring in drug sniffing dogs, or we're going to have these people go through all sorts of your personal stuff.
Well, the producers do go through their stuff when they get there. They like confiscate anything because people have tried to like smuggle phones, like extra phones onto the show. Like they take your phones away, they take your books away, or whatever.
You can't even have books?
I don't think you can have books, no.
Oh gosh, you can't have books, but I can have my How to Win the Bachelor playbook. I think poor Ryan was obviously Ryan sounds like he's got some issues. Sounds like he needed to go, but I also sort of feel like he was set up there. Yeah. So I don't like the whole way this thing went down.
My other wrong reason is one of our top four, Joe. So we find out that as Joe does his limo entrance, that Michelle recognizes him. It takes her a little bit to place it, but she like remembers his last name and says that she DM'd with him at some point about basketball, a couple messages back and forth, and then he ghosted her. And so, before this conversation that Joe and Michelle had, my immediate thought is that this is not a good look to ghost a girl and then show up on her season of The Bachelorette. It seems a little bit like clout chasing here. He just wants to be famous. He already had this little in. This could be an easy way for him to get noticed. And Michelle ends up having a conversation with Joe about what happened between the two of them. And it seemed very intense for the first talk with someone who's essentially a stranger to you. They get into, Joe starts talking about how he like owned a property or something at George Floyd Square, and how there were all of the riots and killings and everything going on there, and how he just wasn't in the right headspace to be with someone, which is a big thing to tell someone for why you ghosted them. It was an intense conversation for their first conversation.
It was. I did not include this as a right reason, wrong reason. It was, Joe, handsome fellow. I think they're both from Minnesota. I think we recognized they had a lot of commonalities. So and I guess we've got a little bit of history when somebody might have contacted a bachelor beforehand. It seems like that's happened before. Did Claire, was that Claire's season that happened? She had been in contact.
I think that what that big football player that couldn't get over her maybe had contacted her during quarantine, and it sounds like this was a quarantine DM between Michelle and Joe, like pre Matt James's season.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong, like I think I'm not saying the wrong reason is his reason for ghosting her. I think the wrong reason is like him showing up after ghosting her on her season with like no communication. It's not a great look for him.
Yeah, it's not a great look. I mean, if is he supposed to resume communication and say, "Oh, by the way, I'd like to be on your show," and does that create other issues? I don't know.
I think he just doesn't go on the show. Maybe wait till next season.
unless he's really into Michelle. But I guess if he was, he should have
He
not
could have
ghosted her.
DM'd her back.
Yes, yes. Did you have a right reason for this show?
So I have two. I have Rick the table boy. He once once exiting the table, he seemed very genuine and sweet about how he did it. Did the whole gimmick 'cause he just wanted to put a smile on Michelle's face and make her laugh. Like he seemed like a genuine guy and seemed to be very interested in Michelle. And he seemed very sweet. I liked him. Um, he did have like some scary eyes though. I don't know if you noticed, like with his head in the table, his eyes looked a little scary. During the rose ceremony, his eyes looked a little scary. Like it looks like he may or may not be wearing eyeliner, and so I was getting kind of like a Halloween vampire vibe from him.
I didn't notice that, but I did appreciate the fact that he came off as, look, I'm here to keep things upbeat and make you laugh, and I think that can go a long way for building a strong relationship. So we'll see if anything. Yeah, he seemed like a nice guy. We'll see, and I thought his entrance was clever and sit out, and so let's see how Rick does.
Mhm.
What other other right reason did you have?
My other right reason was Nate. He obviously stood out by getting the first impression rose, and on a Bachelorette season, history has shown us that a guy that gets the first impression rose typically wins the season. So he is like a standout that we need to look at. Or like he's almost, unless he ruins it for himself, guaranteed a Final Four spot at this point based on historical evidence. And he just seems like a cool guy. Their conversation flowed really easily, and they had like a more serious talk between them about his childhood and his parents getting divorced and what he wants for his future and how he wants to act in front of his children. I just liked him. It seemed very natural between the two of them.
Yeah, I think that you always get points for for showing that you are vulnerable, and Nate felt he seemed a little vulnerable. He shared stuff, but he wasn't blurting it out. She had to work it out of him a little bit. So they seemed to have a good connection. He seemed pretty sincere.
And he got the only kiss of the first night.
I didn't even notice that. Okay, well, good for him. So.
All right. Do you have any right reasons?
Well, my right reason went to Michelle for dealing with the Ryan issue as she did, and in that I didn't like the way the thing went down, but she was sort of thrown into it by Tayshia and Caitlin, and she went up with Ryan to his room, looked at the information, had a conversation with him, and made a decision, and stuck with her decision. And I was saying, hey, she's taking care of her business appropriately and quickly and moving on. So I say right reason for Michelle. You got 30 guys there. If you're starting with those sort of red flags that she talked about, go ahead and kick one out. You're fine. You got a bunch of other guys here. You'll be fine.
I agree.
So that, and also right reason to ABC, no celebrity dating game after The Bachelor. I was happy to see that, or happy not to see that. So way to go, ABC.
They're once again listening to what you have to say.
I think it's his podcast. People should be going to the Mesh.tv, listening to our podcast, rating our podcast, listening to other Mesh.tv podcasts.
Well, my MVP is actually piggybacking off of your right reasons. And no, it's not about the celebrity dating show. It's about Michelle. Michelle is our week one MVP, for similar reasons you said, for the right reason. She's very swift in her decision making and sending Ryan home. I thought it was quite impressive that she was able to place Joe almost immediately and remember his last name. Like, she's in like a completely new situation. She probably has some high adrenaline going, and she's still able to recognize him. I think that she's going to be a really good lead. She's funny and smart, and I enjoyed watching her. So I'm excited for the season to continue.
I'm looking forward to watching her school some people in basketball as well, because I think she's, just from some of the clips we've seen, we know she's a basketball player, but I think she's really a very good basketball player. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, me too. So before you give us some fatherly advice to wrap up, our pick update, I currently have all 4 picks still. You have 3. You lost Jomari, who I believe was your last pick, and the one that eats a watermelon every single day, that I said that was a bad pick to make. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, but I got the first rose right, okay? So I'll always have that.
Yep, you'll always have that. Okay, fatherly advice?
So a few thoughts after watching the first episode. So I couldn't help but say that you or other people listening, if your parents are good role models, it's good to look for people that have those strengths, but you do have to recognize that your parents aren't perfect. So you really can't put us on that high a pedestal. You really shouldn't. Don't wait for perfection. You're going to be waiting a long time. Just the importance of communication. I referred this back to Joe, as you mentioned, the fact that he ghosted her, which, not exactly, my generational term, but just important if you're going to have a relationship with somebody, you got to have good communication skills there. And we'll see how Joe turns out. He was hemming and hawing a bit. He was the one that got the last rose. It felt like Michelle was teetering on the edge of whether she should keep him around or not. I got the sense from some of the previews that he might be around for a while, but hopefully his communication will improve as the weeks go by. And my final piece of fatherly advice. We had 2 firefighters who I think are both still with us.
I have no idea.
Daniel and PJ. Daniel showed up on a toy fire truck, and PJ showed up in a real fire truck. And I just wanted to say, it's really not the size of the fire truck that matters. It's really how well you can put out the fire. You really need to focus on substance, not style.
Was that supposed to be sexual?
No, not at all.
Okay. It felt like we were leaning there. I just checked. Daniel and PJ are both still with us.
PJ's a very handsome guy. He looked like a movie star to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I enjoyed Daniel's bit more than PJ's for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, that's what I've got for you this week.
All right. Well, that's some great advice for me and all of our listeners to take into consideration as we continue through the week. If you're enjoying the podcast, make sure to comment, rate, subscribe to us anywhere you listen to podcasts. We'd really appreciate it. And that's all we've got for today. So join us next time to hear about the first dates of Michelle's season from The Right Reasons and my dad's.